Into the Void is a film that came out in 2009 that's written and directed by Gaspar Noe. So, Into the Void is actually all of y'all's recommendation. It won the subscriber poll, which I do every month, by the way. It won pretty handsomely. No other film on the poll even slightly stood a chance, which was honestly quite surprising to me considering the fact that you had The Host, which is a Bong Joon-ho film on there, and you also had City of God, which is an incredibly popular and beloved film, especially in the Kino community. So I was really excited and also shocked to see all this enthusiasm for a Gaspar Noe film, and this is a film that I've been dying to talk about for quite some time now. Believe it or not, Into the Void was the very first Gaspar Noe film that I was ever exposed to. I first watched this film back in high school when I was like 16. I'm 26 now, about to be 27. And this was probably the most experimental piece of filmmaking that I was exposed to at the time. I had never seen anything this boundary pushing and this unconventional before this. And I remember liking it, but honestly I felt like it was just too early for me to digest something of that magnitude. But I do remember just being in awe at the fact that a film like this exists. I remember just thinking to myself, who funds this? Like, people fund this and this kind of stuff gets released? Like, it just kind of blew my mind at the time. So I was pretty damn excited to finally give Into the Void the much needed rewatch that it well deserves. And after giving it that rewatch, I really like this film a lot. There is a lot about this film that I truly admire and appreciate from a filmmaking standpoint. First of all, let's talk about the introduction to this film. The opening credits to this film is honestly some of my favorite opening credits I've ever seen in a film. It's arguably my favorite opening credits to any film ever, at least that I've personally seen. It just immediately grips you. It doesn't waste any time, and it just immediately sinks its teeth into you and prepares you for something that you can already tell is going to be something unlike you've ever seen, and something that's probably going to be an energetic and existential trip. It's just, I can't see somebody watching this opening credits and not being extremely excited for what they're about to see. Whether or not they're going to end up liking the result of the film, that's a whole different story, but it definitely excites the viewer, no matter what you end up thinking about it. But really, the concept of this film alone is incredibly intriguing, and is one of the reasons why I even knew about it in high school. Because a friend of mine that goes by the name of Griffey Noop, shout out to Griffey Noop, he basically described the concept of this film, and it immediately got me hooked. And I knew that I had to watch this film when I got home that day, because at least at the time, that was something that I felt like I never would see a full-length film just tackle. And it's basically the fact that the entire film is shot through a subjective camera perspective, which basically just means that the entire film, you're experiencing it through the main character's point of view. And Gaspar Noe basically takes that approach and basically says, what if I can recreate a reincarnation afterlife experience? And I feel like he absolutely nails it. And it's by far my favorite aspect of the film. The direction and the color palette and the editing and just the whole aesthetic direction to this film is quite stunning stuff. I mean, it might be some of the most impressive aesthetic direction work that I've personally ever seen, because the presentation is completely out of this world, for the lack of a better phrase. But the film is designed to be this 2-hour out-of-body experience that you won't really get with any other film, at least not in full-length runtime. And throughout this entire film, you really feel like you have this omnipresence, and it's because of the way Gaspar Noe moves the camera throughout his entire film incredibly swiftly. And the film is absolutely filled with these camera angles where the camera's set up high as it just looks straight down into the characters and into the situations. And it just makes you feel that otherworldly feeling. It makes you feel incredibly godlike. But it's also incredibly haunting and terrifying in a lot of different ways. And I really like that about the film, because it kind of dabbles between psychedelic drugs and the afterlife and just death in general. So I like how this film is kind of drawing a similarity between the experiences. Because psychedelic substances can be some of the most terrifying experiences that you'll ever have in your entire life. But at the same time, they can also be some of the most relieving and blissful and just incredibly therapeutic experiences that you've ever had in your entire life as well. And I love how the film draws a connection between the kind of haunting but blissful feeling that you get with psychedelic drugs and also that same type of feeling that you would perhaps get with death. But again, the camera work here and just the direction overall is the most impressive aspect of this film to me by far. There's not a single space in this film that goes unexplored by Gaspar Noe. He's completely unafraid to put the camera in places that you just wouldn't think any filmmaker would dare to go. And on that note, I should bring up the fact that this is a pretty graphic film. And I don't mean graphic in the sense that it's like incredibly violent or just like aberrant in ways that like maybe Climax or Irreversible is. But there's a lot of graphic sexuality in this film. There's a lot of sex here. And it's arguably a little too much. I mean, I'm still kind of thinking about it and trying to decide whether or not all of that was truly appropriate or necessary. But I do see the point. Even though a part of me does believe Gaspar Noe just wants to film people having sex. At the same time, I feel like with a film like Enter the Void, especially when obviously sexuality and also like Freudian psychology is a huge thing in this film. The connection Gaspar Noe draws in this film multiple times between motherly nurturement and sexuality is really on the nose and is a little bit repetitive at times. But again, like, it's not really without its purpose. So even though I'm willing to say that I think it's all purposeful, I don't know if I exactly love every bit of it in this film. And I remember watching an interview on YouTube where the interviewer asked Gaspar Noe about all the graphic sex in the film. And this is what he says.
No, sexy sex.
And I also learned that a lot of the dialogue in this film was completely improvised. And unfortunately with this film, it seems pretty obvious. Like, I kind of predicted that as I was watching the film, because I'm not really a huge fan of the dialogue in this film. Like, I don't think it's necessarily horrible, but it's either on the nose or it's just corny. And I also think the acting in this film is like, it's so weird. And in certain moments, the acting is like not that good. Like, you can tell that like you're just not convinced by the performance overall. And then other moments in this film, you're like blown away. This film, when it comes to the acting, is a bit of a mixed bag. And there is a type of tragic car accident scene in this film that I mostly like the way it was incorporated. Especially that one scene where it involves the kids, especially the little girl character just like screaming at the top of her lungs. I mean, the performance is so good that it kind of makes you question how Gaspar Noe even got the child to react that way. But I think it calls back to it just a little too much. And honestly, there's a scene where they're on a roller coaster and it kind of connects the roller coaster with the car accident scene. But that was the second time they had already shown the car accident scene. And I felt like if the car accident scene was introduced through that roller coaster scene, I felt like it would have been a lot more effective, because not only would you just have not seen it coming at all, but it would have been a really tragic and effective way to introduce this plot point to the audience. But I mean, that's just the way I would have went about it. Who knows if it would have been more effective, but that's just, in my mind, I felt like that would have been more effective. But again, there's a lot about this film that I love, and it mostly has to do with the presentation, but the presentation and also just the thematic approach to this film as well is absolutely mind-blowing, and I admire the hell out of it. I mean, I love the sensory overload approach to this. A lot of flashing strobe light effects kind of thing going on. Obviously, you can't have a Gaspar Noe film and there's not flashing lights that are ready to give you a seizure. The camera work is beyond fantastic. And also, I forgot to mention that this film is like actually really reliant on CGI and special effects. CGI is like all over the place in this film. And actually, like, it doesn't bother me. Like, even though there's plenty of moments where you can tell it's special effects, the film already kind of establishes this really trippy, like, psychedelic DMT type of presentation to it. So the special effects doesn't really bother you that much because you're already kind of on board for something that is supposed to be psychedelic. So yeah, I mean, either way, I obviously still really like this film quite a bit. It's unlike anything I've personally ever seen. So I'm going to give Enter the Void a strong 7 out of 10. What's kind of tragic is that I heard that Enter the Void was submitted to the Criterion Collection for approval, obviously to add it to their collection, and they denied it. I don't know if this is just a rumor or not, but if it's true, that's awfully rude. I mean, why exactly? I mean, you brought Gaspar Noe into your closet, and it's probably the most popular Criterion Closet video that's there on the internet, and you're just gonna do my man like that? Really? If any film belonged on the Criterion Collection, I think it should be Into the Void, even though, so far, I mean, I've only seen Irreversible, Climax, and Into the Void, and Into the Void is my least favorite, but that's just because the bar is set so high with Climax and Irreversible. But Into the Void just seems to fit so well with their criterion, that it just seems tragic that we probably won't ever get a Gaspar Noe film on Criterion Collection. I hope that's not the case. I truly hope one day they'll come around, but I guess it's not looking too bright. But either way, that's all I gotta say about Enter the Void. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear everybody's insight and opinions, as I always do. And don't forget that if you really enjoyed this video, please give it that thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.